Hello, everyone. This is Priyank. I welcome you all for the webinar today. Thank you for taking time to participate in the webinar. Uh, I'm your host for today, and I work at Arita Consulting Services. And we've been organizing webinars in the past also. And even in the recent couple of months, we have had webinars that are focused around technology. So today we have our speaker Padma Satyamurthy, who's who's leading the agile transformation initiatives at Walmart Labs India, a large organization. She comes with tremendous years of experience helping large organizations transform their ways of working. Most of the software development organizations and with varied kind. Uh, some of the organizations are purely software developing, while many are uh, developing software for their own hardware, for their own customized hardware, and so on and so forth. With abundant years of experience, Padma has is going to share with us the metrics conundrum that really is a question, a burning question for most of the medium and large software enterprises. Uh, Not only for the medium and large alone, even for small and startup software organizations, metrics would always be really, really important. And finding the right metrics is has always been a challenge. And given that metrics also drives the behavior within the organization, it becomes much more complex. And before we begin and before we hand over the stage to Padma, a couple of quick inputs to you all. We really want this webinar to be interactive. We don't want it to be, a monologue. So please ask questions or even your thoughts and opinions. Please make use of the Q&A window that you see, and you can type in the question. I'm your host for today, and I will get to know the question if you have written it. I will read it out aloud so that Padma can answer it. And the question is also known for every other participant in the webinar. Without much delay, I know there are people still joining in, but then we should start on time. So, Padma, the stage is yours.
Hey, thank you, Priyank. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for being here with us today. I hope to make this 1 hour. Virtual meetings are a bit challenge, you know. You see people, but you really can't. It's like metrics, exactly. Like the topic actually is very resonating with the atmosphere we are in. It's not everything is what you see is what you actually perceive it to be. They look different, and when you actually analyze and go a little deeper down, they look very different and gives different perspectives to the whole picture. So this virtual meetings are something similar to that. That the participants, the attention levels, the questions are all good indicators, but at the end of the day, they really it's not very easy to analyze and come to a conclusive statement saying whether this was really a good one or not a good one. So I think that way the topic as well as the virtual world we are right now working on is very conducive with each other. So with that, like Priyank said, I'd really like to make this as interactive as possible. So don't wait till the last slide. Don't wait till a logical conclusion to ask questions. If it is coming in the upcoming slides, I'll definitely let you know, and so we could wait. But if it's something I have not really thought about in this slide, I could learn from you as well, and we could have a good, meaningful discussion for everyone's benefit in the team here. So with that, I would like to start um, uh, with a thank you note to begin with. Thank you, Arita. Thank you, Priyank and team, Ambika, Valish, everyone in the Arita team who have first taken an effort to put this webinar together, bring in a lot of people together. And this takes a lot of effort. I do this most times even in my place, and it's not very easy to pull on a virtual conference all the time. So thank you for organizing this, and thank you for all the participants for being here. Looking forward to a very interactive discussion with you all in this session today. So I usually start, some of you have maybe heard me before. I'm a big fan of Dilbert, and I usually start with a Dilbert comic because I find that there is nothing that Dilbert has touched, right? So there is always a very it looks very funny to begin with, but definitely not just funny, but a lot for profound meaning behind the picture that you can see. Like they say, picture speaks 1,000 words. So this one is about the dashboard and how we actually struggle in our own organizations, uh, ignoring few things which are really important, and making decisions based on things which are really not very important. So most of the times our metrics dashboards, for whether we want it that way or not, ends up in a way we really actually didn't want it that way. So, what we want to talk here today, what I have planned to speak with you guys today is not exactly tell you what metrics to use and the formula behind it and the source behind it. Will you get a good result if you use Jira for this, or will you get a good result if you use Jenkins for this? I'm not going to talk about that. Instead, we are going to talk about more on what are the challenges when you want to put a enterprise dashboard, enterprise metrics picture in place, and what are some of my experiences in putting this together for many companies that I have worked in the past. I have been part of very large organizations through my career: Target, Philips, Honeywell, Unisys, very recently Lowe's before coming into Walmart, Cineverse, which is a mobile technology company. So quite a few of them, which are very large multi-nation companies, so spread across the globe. So what have been my challenges? What have been my experiences is what I'm going to share, and some of the challenges that I still bump into all the time in my work, and what are some things we are trying to do to minimize those challenges. I will not say we have ever hit a zero button on those challenges, but what have we done to minimize these challenges to a large extent? So that's kind of what we are going to be discussing. So uh, definitely welcome you all to share your challenges as I go into those topics. I would love to listen to you people as well. So to begin with, just maybe Priyank, would you want to take a poll of what our friends in the groups are really looking at from a metrics perspective? How are they doing? It will be a good starter to start the topic.
Sure. I'll just launch the poll. Okay. We will give 30 seconds for everybody to participate in the poll and answer it. Ten more seconds. I still see there are answers coming in. All right. Let me end the poll. Uh, we will share the results, just like how we collect the metrics and share the results. So, Padma, you're able to see this?
Yeah, we collect and do not publish, which is pretty common. We do not collect, yeah, yes. But it's good to see a lot of you guys collect and publish metrics. The whole point about the metrics is to make the whole organization transparent. And if you are not making it transparent, then uh, the team's participations, the team, the associates, and the employees' participation in the whole game gets minimized if we are not publishing, because they're not too sure what else are we using it for. The first thing that comes to anyone's mind, maybe you could put it on the chat window, is what comes to your mind when it comes to metric? Like, do you see it as more a policing, more a strict way of working, maybe something that has a control limits? What comes to your mind? Or do you see it as a improvement item? What comes to your mind when you look at metrics? Maybe you could just put it in the chat window. As I continue to talk, I'll take a look at the chat window as well. What comes to your mind? The first thing, okay, we already have some better estimation. Yeah. Perfect. Inspect and adapt. That's absolutely correct. I really wish organizations use it for that. But what happens is whenever we speak about metrics, especially in the olden worlds of Six Sigma and other things, which actually did a fantastic job of bringing in a better software, better work culture. One of the things they also introduced, which was not really great, was in introducing them something called control limits, which actually prevented failure. What happens when you prevent failure with the when you start analyzing metrics and starts preventing failure is it definitely prevents failure, but it also prevents any kind of innovation that we want to do, right? So probably that's probably one of the drawback when we not look at metrics in the right way, right? People start looking metrics and start controlling the teams to work in a certain way, which curbs them to do any innovation, which stops them from experimenting and just being complacent with the way things are, just so that the metric starts looking good. So once this happens, the metrics actually starts looking good, honestly. Right? Like what we call, as you must be very familiar with this term called the watermelon metrics, right? Everything looks good from outside, everything is green, but only when you cut open, you see that it's actually red. Nothing is. What are those red items? What you do not see in the open space or in the front end is that there are no innovations happening in the organization. There are no new ideas coming into the organization. There are no new ways of working that are being introduced in the organization. People are not trying to experiment in any new technology or any new process, because they just want to ensure the results are consistent. So while we want to ensure the metrics to make our progress and products consistent, what we also kind of end up with is being very complacent, especially in large organizations. You must have heard this word institutionalize or standardize, right? So whatever worked in one team, all we want to do is take it up and put it in another team and try to replicate it, whether it fits it or not, and try to bring in one size fit all kind of a solution, where we have saying, okay, if you have a number X, you are a good team, and if your numbers are in the Y limits, then you're like you need a lot of improvement. So we start looking metrics in a very different picture altogether. So metrics are actually very controversial that way. It could actually make you very innovate. It could make you very innovative. It could push you to try new things, push you to touch the sky as your limit, and make you more powerful. Or metrics could be strings attached to your back, which could pull you down every time you are trying to fly, because flying is not allowed and we are only allowed to only walk and crawl on the floor. So this is what happens when we collect metrics and we publish it in the not so right way. I will not use the word wrong, because there is nothing right or wrong in the whole metrics picture. But the thing is, it could actually become a kind of a catastrophe effect over a period of time. We are collecting metrics, we are publishing metrics, everything looks good, but still there is something missing. That's what we start feeling, but we really don't know what is that we are missing. So we really want to be aware of things which we do not see in a metrics dashboard, right? So that is the work of the leadership team. When I say leadership, I'm not talking about CXO or a designation. I'm talking in the world of lean, where everybody is a leader. If you look at the lean house of lean in the foundation, the leadership says that everybody is a leader. You could be a leader in your development activities, you could be a leader in your testing activities, a leader in the architecture world. Everybody is a leader, and everybody becomes equipped to see things which we are really not able to see in the open eyes, right? You need maybe a magnifying glass or a third eye to look at some of the things, sixth sense, what we call as, and see and analyze what we are seeing. The first thing that comes to anyone's mind is, I mean, the first question, I think Simon Sinek put it very well in one of his earliest talks: start with why, right? Every time you see something, start with the childlike curiosity. Why are we doing this? So why do you think we measure? Why do we need to measure? Why do we need to have metrics? Any thoughts? Why measure? I think there are some answers already in the chat window in the previous question that we asked for. Um,
That's right.
Estimated number of bugs, to understand how we are doing, data oriented versus gut opinion. Then we have progress improvements. Absolutely. Yeah, right. So different layers of the organizations, different set of functionals in the organization look at different things, right? It could be some teams may be focusing on measuring customer satisfaction. Some teams, some of the folks in the organization may be completely focused on developing the right product, and some of them will be very process focused. Are we developing it the right way? So there are many things that we see. I have put only a few things here, but you could actually fill up this slide without a small space available with many things that why we measure in an organization, right? So, and all these are correct, none of them are wrong. Everybody who is measuring in these spaces are actually right in their own way. A sales team, a marketing team is always looking at ROI, right? What are we bringing back to the organization on the investments that we have made? So everything looks correct, everything is good. So what does that imply when you say we are measuring so many things? What does that mean to you, right? What really matters? I'll probably give a small story here before I move on to the next slide. Anyone who have watched this movie Moneyball? It's a Brad Pitt movie, a little older, maybe a decade old movie, if I'm correct. Um, it's a nice movie. Yeah, I see Vijay saying here yes here to the, I think, to the movie, I guess. So it's a movie on yeah. Bhairesh also says yes. It's a very nice movie. Maybe you could use it this weekend to see. Anyway, theaters are not really open, so you could use one of the OTTs to watch the movie. So it's about actually a baseball team. It's a real true story based on a baseball coach played by Brad Pitt. I'm not very baseball conversant, so I may not exactly know the terminologies and the word, but the book is very fascinating. It's a biography written by Mike Lewis and made into a movie also. Movie is easier to watch than reading the book, obviously. So what this book is all about, or this biography is all about, a baseball coach who was working for Oakland Athletics team, and the team was actually losing in spite of having very good players, right? So what he did was, then obviously when the teams are losing, your budgets are constrained when you want to build a newer team, right? That's how it happens in any clubs. So he has been given a task to put up a winning team with a constrained budget, and he is also not sure how to go about it. And he bumps into a new guy in the management in the company, who is from a Yale University grad, a very young chap who has different thoughts altogether. And what this guy has done is, in the last few years, he has put up a lot of, he has studied the data of the entire Oakland Athletics team for a last 30 years or so, and has come up with a strategy of what type of combination really works, which is beyond the obvious that we see when putting up a team together for a baseball team, right? So usually what were the earlier selectors seeing, or what do usual selectors see when they put up a team is how athletic you are, how good you are about in running, how good is your throw. It's just like maybe we could visualize with our cricket team, right? So how good is our throw, how good you are at catch, your ability to connect with the ball, everything, right? So we are looking at the obvious parameters and saying, hey, this is good one, this is good. Height, weight, everything looks good. The age factors are good. Everything is fine. So let us bring in this player. So that's one of the things we were seeing, right? Very obvious metrics. What this Yale grad had done, his name was Peter Brand, what he had done was to see things which are beyond obvious and saying, hey, you not only need these type of qualities, but you also need some of these percentage of things in each player to make it a winning combination. So not just everyone having everything, but a winning combination of certain percentage in everyone that actually helps build the team. So what he did was to go beyond the obvious metrics that a selectors team sees and put up a team. And they actually picked up a team which was actually considered undervalued. And the management was very unhappy when they put up the team. And when this team was brand new, so obviously they did not do well in the first 2 months, which actually proved the other management team in the club saying, oh, we told you in the first place this will not work. But what happened after 2 months was miracle, right? It went down in the history of the baseball, history of the American baseball history, is that they went on to win consecutive 20 matches in that season and went on to lift the cup as well, right? So that is what a undervalued, underdog kind of a team went on to do with this metrics. So it's popularly called as saber metrics, which is even today used very popularly while putting up a baseball team. So that's what Peter Brandt came up with, the sabermetrics, using the sabermetrics very effectively to come. And these metrics are not really what you see on the table, but something underneath the dashboard that you see, right? So that is where they were able to put up a winning team. And then actually Boston team approached this coach Bean, would he want to come and put it up, but he was so wedded to the Oakland team, he didn't want to do it. But Boston team actually took the best practices, put up a team exactly like that, and after 2 years, they went on to win the trophy, American season trophy for that year. So now a lot of baseball teams within US are using these ones. And what it kind of highlights is looking beyond the obvious, right? At the same time, it's not all about gut. So when we look at something, we feel that, yeah, this looks perfect, everything looks okay. Height, weight, personality, catch, throw, running ability, everything looks okay. That's what our gut feeling says, yeah, this is the player we should have. But what this sabermetrics help them to do is go beyond that and see the lot more obvious things behind that, and then come up with a winning strategy for the whole thing. So you can draw, when you see that movie, probably you could draw a lot of parallels how we can connect it with the corporate world. So what matters is what is that you really want to achieve, right? So exactly the picture what I have put here is what matters is the goal. What do you want to achieve? If you look at the previous slide, what we wanted to achieve, everybody's goals looks different, right? So somebody wants to achieve equality, somebody wants to achieve ROI. So what matters is what is that goal that we are trying to achieve as an organization, and our metrics ideally uh, should be aligned to the goal that we are trying to achieve. Only then you will come very close to what how to analyze your metrics and how to build a winning team, how to build a winning product that you can put it up in the market. So the whole movie actually talks about like exactly what you see on the scale, right? Just a number on the weighing scale saying you're 60 kg or you're 80 kg really means nothing, and they mean different things to different people. If I say I'm 60 kilos to a probably a gym instructor, he will say, oh no, the body mass index should be this one for your height and your weight. So you need to do multiple things to come back to this weight. But if I go to the doctor, for example, with that weight, the doctor is not too keen on the weight alone, but he asks multiple other questions to find out what else is some hidden behind the weight, and then help solve some other problem. But maybe if I'm going to maybe a dance teacher, say I want to learn dance and I want to learn some movements, maybe the dance teacher will have different perspective on the weight that I am going with and say, hey, to do these type of movements, you need these type of flexibility in the body. So probably you will need to uh, do some of these activities and come back here. Gopal, the movie name is Moneyball. I'll put it in the chat window maybe, or Priyank, you could type it.
Sure.
Yeah, it's Moneyball. So what we see is not what exactly it looks like. And sometimes it may even look wow, right? but it may not be the real wow factor that metrics dashboard that we see will be telling us. So why does this happen? Why what we see is not what we are getting when we look at a dashboard, when we look at a say plain simple numbers? Because every organization goes through multiple challenges, and these challenges sometimes do not surface. Challenges are not really measurable, right? What is measurable is very easily mathematically calculatable. Those are the ones which are easily measurable. But what is not measurable is basically um, basically what we are not seeing is we are not going beneath those metrics dashboard to understand what challenges are underneath in the organization. And if you are not hitting the root cause, you are going to live with those challenges year after year after year. Things look good like the watermelon, but then we are still red inside and green outside for a very long time. So first thing that we will have to start off with is, once why we are measuring, you will get like a laundry list of goals, right? When I say start with the goal, then what happens is you will get a laundry list of goals like our backlogs, right? Which will take you maybe 10 years to achieve all those parameters that that you're putting up together, what you want to achieve or why measure, right? You will get, because sometimes even defining some intangible things like a value, for example, it's so intangible. How do you even define and come up with a metric to measure the value, right? When it is plain straightforward dollar, it's easy, but when it is different parameters like a customer satisfaction, it is very fluctuating. So how do you come up with a mathematical formula for intangible things? So then, to come up with that goal, you also need to look at who are the people who are using the metrics in the organization. What are the personas and different personas within an organization who use those metrics, right? So many organizations, I mean, I'm not even talking about a very hierarchical, even if you look at a holocratic organization, which is like kind of very woven and very lattice type of, even they, you have many multiple people, and different people need metrics for different reasons, right? Somebody may need a metrics to measure effectiveness of the team. Somebody want to see the metrics to understand the productivity of the team. Somebody else wants to see the metrics to understand and project what could be our revenue at the end of the year based on the current performance. And somebody else may be looking at how many features can be released by the end of the year based on the current way of doing things. So people need metrics for different things. Agree on this? I'm sure you are with me. So I would love to see a bit more on the window as well. If you are seeing, if you are in with me on some of these slides, or if you are having a different thought process, I would love to see that as well. So what we are seeing is, what I want to here do a poll with Priyank is, what are the different layers in which you are collecting metrics right now in your organization? I know that there are more than 80% people said you collect metrics, so I expect to see those results in the poll for sure. So Priyank, would you run that? Let us see what types of metrics are being collected by our friends today.
Launched it. Let's give it 30 more seconds for the participants to answer.
I'm
10 more seconds. All right, let me end the poll and share the results. You all can see on the screen.
That's a very good one, right? Like, I mean, almost 60% of the people are measuring at a business level. That's a very good result. I'm very happy that most of you, 60% of you are at this, because sometimes what happens is the alignment to the business is the biggest challenge that we see. I'll come to that slide when I come a little there. But as you can see, team, obviously we have a lot more. What is easier is what we start off, right? So that is very common, and that's how it should be. In fact, you should start with where you are and then evolve over a period of time. So that's how it is meant to be. Let's take a look at what else. Same thing, right? We were talking about. I put enterprise here. Priyank had a different version on business there, but it's all the same. So with so much of a layer within the organization, so many different people looking into it, how do you know uh, what um, uh, what what uh, what metrics are the right metrics? How do you know which is the right metric, which is not the right metric? That's correct, Krishna Prasad. Most often we stop at low hanging fruits. It's actually in a way good, because we feel good. It's a feel good factor, but then it's very hard to go to the not so low hanging fruits also, right? That's the challenge. So how do you know what metrics are right? Then again, you need to go back to the persona. Only then you know what metrics are right for which type of audience. Correct? Are you with me on this? And everybody's point of view will be very different, right? What I am seeing from the metric in from one angle may not be what someone else, say for example a product team, a product leadership team may be looking at a metrics for a different purpose, and an engineering team, very technical engineering team, may be looking at the metrics dashboard for a different purpose, and they both have different takeaways when they look at the dashboard. One may walk away with a on a cloud nine saying, oh wow, this was all good, and one team actually may walk away, one functional team may walk away saying, oh my god, I did not know we were here, there is a lot more to do, right? Because it's all about what each one of us are saying. So what it really means is, there is no metric that's a right or a wrong metric, right? I go into a lot of organizations, and one of the common metrics, most of you also might have heard, velocity, right? And there is a constant battle. If you go into LinkedIn area and put metrics as a velocity as a metric, you will be kind of having at least 1,000 message by the time you wake up next day. If not 1,000, that may be a bit exaggeration, but at least 100 messages on your LinkedIn message velocity as a metric when you wake up next day morning, saying whether it is velocity is a metric or velocity is not a metric, right? And each one who is fighting for or against for it, both of them will be correct. There is nobody who is wrong there. It all depends on why you're measuring it and what you want to do by measuring it. That's where the first question I asked was, are you publishing the metrics results? Because what you want to do with metrics, when I say publish, what we mean is, are we using it for anything that, like, do you have an action plan for the metric that you're collecting? That's what we mean by publishing, right? If we are not having an action plan for a metric that we are collecting, if we do not know what to do with that metric, then why are we even collecting that metric, right? So the metric may not be right or wrong on its own, but it's all about whether the metric is right now the right metric for us as an organization at this point in time, or not a right metric at this point in time. So this is I mean, ever arguable conversation that we can have forever. What's a right metric and what's not a right metric? So I'm not even getting there in this session because it could be a topic of its own. I would definitely love one of you in the participants to maybe come back and talk about, maybe have a controversial topic on right and wrong metrics maybe. So what's your goal? Start with what's your goal. And when I say your, it goes back to the picture we saw, each stakeholder within the organization. You need to go back and ask each of those. If you are going to be working on the metrics part of the initiative in your organization, the first thing that probably you will start your journey is with is going and asking each stakeholder, what is your goal and what do you want, where do you want to see uh, you yourself in the next few weeks, or the next few weeks, next few months, next couple of years? What do you want to see? And then come up with what factors helps to achieve that goal, right? So I'm not really going very detailed into the GQM model here, but I'll just connect it with the metric, goal with metric, because most of you may be already familiar with the GQM model here. So what we want to do is we want to have a metric and connect it with the goal, but that's not easy. So what's a goal? Anything that you desired result that you want to see in the future is a goal. And metric is a very standard unit of measurement. So according to English, these two are really not very connected. They are not from the same family. One is a very mathematical way of doing things, and the other one is a very visionary kind of a work, right? How do you connect these two? So connecting metric with goal is by asking a lot of powerful questions, right? Are we able to ask powerful questions with our stakeholders before we come up with the metrics list or the metrics dashboard that we want to run for our organization? And this will be a continuous activity. This will never, this is like our value stream mapping activity that we do, right? We don't do it once in a lifetime. We do it continuously throughout. It's like inspect and adapt, like Kishan was talking about in the chat window, right? Inspect, adapt. You don't do it once in a lifetime. You do it again and again and again so that you can. So you keep going back and asking powerful questions to your stakeholders again and again, because why do we want to ask those questions again? What is the need? Will things be static from what I asked last month to now? Not really, right? Things will never be static. Things will always on the go. Like it's what was priority for me 2 months back is no more a priority. Look at the current situation in the pandemic. What people thought was a priority last year as an organization, most of it has actually changed for this year and looks very different in the next couple of years. How we want to perceive an organization, how we want to perceive a work culture as. So everything becomes very different. So that's the reason why we go back and ask the questions, so that people also can refine their thought process according to the current situation. So a simple thing that we do here, for me, what is my goal today? Ensure that my audience don't fall asleep while I'm doing this presentation. So what do I have to do? I have to monitor what are the questions I have to ask. Have they been paying attention? Are they active on the call? Have they been asking questions? What are the metrics that will tell me? So participation in the poll. So are they actively, only if you're actively listening, you're awake and you're participating. Did anybody go out in between the session? Exit ratios? How silent are the audience? And what are the number of questions we are able to get? Maybe some of the metrics that actually helps us to. And these are again very outward metric, right? You can only see. But there are some things which you do not really see. People may be wanting to keep in touch after the session and want to connect with you to ask some things more than what we discussed today. So those are some things which we really are not able to find out with the plain metrics. Yeah, leading indicators and lagging indicators. Exactly, Vijay. Yeah. So this is what we also follow. So this looks easy, right? When I say let's go back, talk to your stakeholders, ask for their goals, and come back and prepare a question and prepare a metric, and then publish your dashboard. How much time does it take to do all this? Maybe 1 month, maybe 2 months initiative. With a good team of about 3 to 4 people, you can finish it in a month, right? Looks very easy. But what is the most challenging part behind the scenes for this, right? So what actually stops going beyond the metrics that we are able to see and understand are the hidden challenges that we look at. So these are some challenges I have come across in my so far in my career. But I know I see that, like, I mean, I have my some of my friends in the call also, like Krishna is here, Priyank is here, Kishan, who all have great experience. I would love all of you guys to also pitch in at some point in time to some of the challenges that we can actually add to these challenges that I'm talking about. What I have done is to pick up top 5 challenges and go a little deep into it. So the first challenge I have come across is catering to diverse stakeholders, right? It becomes very difficult to really and go into basically go into each one of them. And if you are trying to ask a goal, say for example at the executive leadership level, then there may be 3 to 4 different types of people, type of leadership within the executive group who have different goals, right? And then within the product leadership, there are again different types of roles within the product leadership, and they have different goals. So catering to this type of diverse audience becomes extremely challenging. Every time I have gone with a metrics dashboard to present, the more time I have come out with is, hey, I'm not seeing this is super critical for me. And I come back and add it and go back next time, and then there is at least another 5 set of roles who have come back and said, hey, your dashboard is not useful to me because it doesn't have 1 2 3 4 5. Every single time I have walked in, every single month I have walked in with a presentation of my metrics dashboard, I come out saying, hey, this is not all about it. You don't have this one, you don't have that one. So that's the most difficult part. And as the organization becomes bigger and bigger, right, it starts becoming complex and complex. uh, if you are multi-country based organization, multinational based organization, then obviously you need to have some regional metrics, you need to have some holistic metrics, you need to have different functional level metrics. It all starts to become extremely complex. And what does this flow into? What does this leads into? A lot of interdependencies as the organizations become bigger. And once the interdependencies start becoming bigger, your metrics collection and metrics publishing also becomes a lot more complex. Because when you say, hey, this program is behind on this, the program may come back and say, hey, no, that's not correct. That's not how you read that metric, because we were supposed to be getting this feature from this program. Only after they would give us this work, we could start. They were delayed. So don't show our metric as red. We are actually not red. We had nothing to do with this failure, right? So this is something commonly you've heard. Anyone who is not heard of this game of, hey, this is not about me, this is about someone else. Any thoughts on that? Anyone who has not heard of this type of a logic where it's not about me? Yeah, Bodhisattva, I will talk to you about the OKRs. Metrics can be linked to the OKRs, should be linked to the OKRs. I'll come to that in a bit. Yeah.
Also, there's
Uh,
one more question by Aniruddha Verma here
uh,
saying goals can be short or long term and can change over course of time.
exactly.
Will
That's
met-
the reason why we say do not have it as a fixed item in your line item. Go back and ask, hey, has your goals changed? I have come back. I know I've just come back after 2 months, but I still want to know, are you still on the same goal, or should I be looking at different metrics based on your changed goals? Correct? Thoughts, Aniruddha? That's why we say don't have a fixed calendar to go back and talk to your stakeholders and ask for questions. Because now nothing remains the same. Nothing remains static in an organization. Only dead things remain static, right? Anything that is live and kicking will never be static. So that's why you need to go back, and that's why we even value stream mapping, right? When we do, a lot of teams feel or programs feel, oh, we have done it once, done, it's done forever. I say no. Actually, I would love you to do it every month. Every month, yeah, because the way we our value flows changes, the way we can look, our perceptions changes, our perspectives changes on the way that things are flowing. So yes, it's very important to go back and ask the question why again and again. Any other question on that topic? Uh, Previously I have missed out, Priyank.
uh, no, I don't think so, Panna.
Okay. So there are, I mean, very different types of interdependencies, but I have just highlighted 3 types. One is a very matured organization where the dependencies are pooled, are open, right? So I do my work in my program, my team, and you do your work in your program, your portfolio. But when there is a dependency, we come together, we resolve it and go back to our teams, right? It could be at any level. I'm not, when I say team, I'm not talking about just a software development team. It could be even at a portfolio team, right? Say there are interdependencies related to budget at a portfolio level. Even there, we talk about very pooled interdependencies where we come together, solve it, and go back, and then we go back to our own work. That's a very matured organization, and you will see a lot of more progressive metrics in these type of organizations. The other one is very sequential, but what happens most of the times is the story that I told you, where people come back and say, hey, my metrics are green, it's all about the other program who did not deliver on time, right? So that is how it ultimately works into. And then there is sequential. There are some things which has to be done sequentially. Only after A completes the work. When I say A, it could be team, it could be program, it could be a portfolio, or it could be a functional organization. Only after finance approves, I can start the work. So it could be even at a functional level, right? Not necessarily at a personal person or a team level, but it could be at even at organization functional level. Only after a project or a program ID is created in SAP, I can actually start putting the team together. So there is a dependency on the overall ERP team for me on that. So a lot of things are sequential, and the larger the organization, the sequential interdependencies are higher, right? They are directly proportional to the volume of the organization, because they would have want to put it some process in place, and it is so it becomes all controlled in a way that you can't do anything until this work is completed. The tool won't even allow you in a lot of organizations to proceed without this, right? So sequential. So you need to be aware of what type of interdependencies we have. And some are cyclical, right? Like it's the business. Look at the best example of a cyclical interdependency is basically on IT and business, right? Business gives a requirement, IT goes ahead and puts up that feature, then business goes ahead, releases to the customers, comes back with more enhanced elements on the features, right? So obviously it's cyclical. So business and IT works very cyclical on the interdependencies. And you have questions to clarify, the business has questions to clarify on the technical aspects, you have questions to clarify on the from IT. I'm assuming we as in the all of us are in IT, but some of you may be in the business side also. So we continue to ask questions and it becomes cyclical. So identify what type of interdependency you have and come up with a solution that actually helps you to, you'll never hit a stage where you are saying, I have zero dependency on anyone, right? It's impossible. The minute you grow in an organization to a medium to a large, interdependencies are very, very common. It is not. But how monolithic you should be or you should not be, and how progressive you can be, what type of microservices that you can introduce, how interdependencies can be managed and minimize those dependencies is what the maturity is all about. And your metrics, some of the good metrics can actually help you point out. So instead of looking at metrics which talks about, hey, what's our deployment frequency, for example, could we look at also behind the metric, what are the interdependencies that are involved in the deployment frequency pipeline? Can we look at that? Can we identify the interdependency nodes and and say, put a scale there probably. This interdependency is at a very large right now, or a high, medium, low, and then say, how do we minimize it to a medium and a low, if there is a possibility at all, or it's going to be high forever. Interdependencies are going to be high forever. How do we come up with a framework or a strategy to work around this type of a dependency, right? So what we have also done is, I mean, we are a very, very large organization, right? Like they say, if Walmart was a country, it would have been the fifth largest nation. Or even in the previous organization, Philips or Honeywell, a very large 120-year-old organization, Honeywell. So it's not very easy to navigate at all. So what one of the things we did was at the team portfolio program layers, identify the interdependencies, put up a node for those dependencies, calibrate them into high, medium, low, and come up with a framework or a strategy to one, if there is a way you can minimize, two, a framework or a strategy to work around with the high dependencies you anyway have. You don't have a choice, right? So this could actually help your metrics to look better on the front end. Nobody will see this, which is a very back end metric, but it's an input metric. What people are going to see is an improved output metric that you see on the dashboard.
There are a couple of questions.
Yeah, sure. That's why I paused.
Okay, sure.
I'm not reading you. You could tell me.
Okay, Sita is asking, do you advise changing the metric frequently?
I will not advise changing the metric frequently because it starts confusing. So I mean, anything to see a good result, you will need 6 to 8 months at least to see. But what I will advise you to change frequently is asking right questions at the back end for the metric and identifying the input metric that is actually helping you to come up. The one Vijay was talking about, right? Leading and lagging indicators, or what we call as input and output metric. So your output metrics are directly aligned with the goal. What are the input metrics that actually can help you come to that? Maybe you want to relook at the input metrics which are at the back end, frequently take a look at it. If need be, frequently change it so that you're able to see. Only if after you have done enough experiments and you still see nothing, then maybe you want to look at your changing the uh, front end output metrics.
And there are questions around establishing RACI to begin with.
RACI is a good one. I mean, if you're an agile organization, then RACI may not be, because we are always talking about collective ownership in an agile organization, correct? While the metrics are very common to both an agile or a non-agile practicing organization, but we are not seeing too many non-agile organizations today, and we are talking about collective ownership. The minute we put a RACI, it starts becoming very easy to enter into a blame game of, anyway, this I'm only supposed to be accountable and I'm not supposed to be responsible. I mean, I'm not talking about it individual level, even at a program level. So don't hold me responsible for this, or I was only supposed to be in the C column, as you can see in the matrix. So don't hold me responsible for what has not happened, right? So that's type of, so what we want to encourage is a collaboration, right? In any organization, agile, non-agile. What we want is a collective ownership and a collective collaborative work that ultimately is in the benefit of the organization's goal and organization vision. So from that point, typically, we are not really looking at RACI, but rather more look at. So what we have done also is even in the previous or in this current organization is we have made a vision as the hero of, or heroine of the organization, right? Hero. So the real picture. And what we have also done is everything else we have made it a lot more agnostic. So we are not really agnostic with, we are really not held up on what framework are using. We are giving the autonomy to the teams to use. They want to use Scrum, go ahead and use. If that is what your framework you want to use. You want to use SAFe, please go ahead. If you want to use SAFe, you want to just stick to a plain vanilla lean practices, very simple one, or stick to just agile manifesto, right? I'm looking at only the 4 values and 12 principles and nothing else matters to me. In fact, all metrics that we want to achieve, I mean, according to me, we can all find it in those 4 values and 12 principles. There is very little that you need to really calibrate and come up with something new, innovative outside of the 4 values and 12 principles that are already there, if you're practicing agile in a true sense. So what we are saying is make vision, make the goal as the common element, and tell people, I mean, what we have done is asking, we are not really looking at what or how you are taking the journey. What we are saying is, hey, reach here at this point in time, and we will give you the autonomy and the empowerment to choose what vehicle you want to choose to come and reach here at the goal point, right? You could use a bus, you could use a train, so you could use a Scrum, you could use a Lean, you could use a Kanban. You are welcome to use that. What we want to see is the results, the outcome. So what we have made is outcome as the predominant goal, what we want to achieve, and we are leaving a lot of things at the autonomy and empowerment. That way, we have also been able to remove a lot of RACI within the organization also. Anything else, Priyank? Should I
No,
move ahead?
I think there's
Okay.
agreement to what you just mentioned. People.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, so the third challenge is a cumulative dashboard. The minute you want to make it a cumulative one pager or a two pager dashboard, it's really becomes very sensitive, right? Whose functional line has the maximum metrics on the dashboard? Why my function has only one metric on the dashboard, and why your function has two metrics on the dashboard? It all becomes very sensitive in the discussion room. So if you're attempting to have a dashboard of a one pager or a two pager, then what should go into that? Should it be focusing on performance? Should it be focusing on delivery, on adoption, on application usage, application health? What should it really look like? It all becomes very difficult. And this is where actually, as you see, as the organization starts becoming bigger and bigger, you will see a very minimal effort on consolidating the results and putting it. And even if you are talking about a dashboard, it's talking about a finance dashboard, for example, or a marketing dashboard or a revenue dashboard. You really do not see often a holistic dashboard of all, because you really don't know what should go inside the dashboard. It's a big challenge to come up with a cumulative dashboard at our organization level. I always bump into this challenge every time I have entered into even a medium-sized or a semi-medium sized organizations also. And then the next big challenge, especially if you are working, like for example, the organizations I have worked for, whether it's Philips Healthcare or whether it is right now in the retail, uh, we are we are not directly into the software or the IT business, right? What we are developing is aligning into the overall business, maybe retail, maybe healthcare, maybe home improvement. The business lines are very different. And we are more an enabler organization. So it becomes all the more challenging. I'm not saying it's easy for a direct software company like a Google or someone, but it's all the more challenging, especially in the kind of industries that I have come from, aligning with the business, because the business line is completely different from the line of work that we are doing in the IT world here in the back end, right? We are more an enabler organization. We are not selling software, but we are making software to sell something else. So the alignment becomes even more tight and even more siloed, or even more not tight. In fact, it becomes a lot more loosened. You start getting very lost in the business alignment discussions, because you're not too sure what you are actually catering to and how it is all impacting at the end of the day. So the first things or first that we need to start looking at is ensuring that your employees are all already aligned to the business. So if it's a retail, if it's a healthcare, first every employee should know that we are actually working for a retail organization, or we are working for a healthcare organization, we are working for a home improvement organization. And then come up with the second set of goal that talks about we are developing the IT to actually improve that overall big business that we are supporting. So this is where a lot of large organizations actually stumble upon when aligning to the business goals, because a lot of employees, lot of even not just at the team, but even at the higher level, sometimes not very clear on understanding the overall business of the organization, and they really do not understand why we are doing a few things and who is going to use it, right? So this is another big challenge we come across. And obviously it becomes a lot more bigger as we start expanding as an organization and start diversifying ourselves into different product lines, different service lines. And the last one is the one every time this argument is about what value we have delivered, right? Because especially if you are only a enabler, like you say, for example, a banking company, banking, right? So we are not directly into banking. We are developing IT for a banking. So what value is delivered, we really do not know how much percentage actually has been coming out of the IT team that is working behind it. So it's a very holistic number. So even though there are some tangibles like revenue, profit, stock price, we do not directly cannot attribute it everything to the IT world of it alone. And other things intangible, it becomes all the more difficult, like goodwill. If people are coming back again and again to our retail stores or our retail e-commerce platforms, or coming back to our banks or coming back to our healthcare products, we really have no way of measuring it in a one metric that says, hey, all this happened because of this, right? The cause and effect, what we call as. So the cause is this and the effect is this. Cause and effect is not always for failure. Cause and effect is done even on the success ratios. If I have to find out the cause of the success effectiveness, it becomes all the more difficult, especially when you are talking about something like a brand value. How did our brand value improve? Of course, there are organizations like Standards and Poor and other companies who actually do a lot of analysis on the brand, but there is no one direct mathematical formula that helps you to achieve or decode a intangible value. Especially tangible itself is a harder thing, and intangible is all the more difficult. So here is where the challenge of what did you do, what did I get, what's in it for me, or what did I benefit out of this, becomes very difficult to decode or articulate for any single program or a single portfolio when we talk at a business level. So this is where our metrics also do not give us the right answers for the right questions. The questions are right, but finding the right answers that is actually going to help us in the future becomes very hard. It's not impossible, but it's a lot of work. So what has worked for me, I've just put it in a very three simple step. While it may look as simple as this, but it takes a lot of effort, time, and a long journey to get there. The first thing that we do is start where we are, right? We can, our what we want to be is actually a destination. It's like your simple Google map. To know where how much time you need to get there, first you need to put in your current location. Only then the Google map will also be able to give you how much time you need and what is the best route to get there. So understanding your current location, so maybe you can start with an assessment, start with a survey, start with the current metrics analysis or the metrics dashboards you already have in the organization. Start from where you are and then come up with the overall journey that you think, based on the goals and the answers you have for the questions. Then come up with the next set of strategy, and then focus on the goal rather than on the route for the goal or the framework or the strategy or anything. The more focus is on goal, the more you speak about the goal, it starts becoming the truth over a period of time. Everybody start talking about the goal. Then it all becomes, you don't even need to standardize it because people only are talking about it. You're not talking about anything else. So instead of talking about something as simple as, hey, have you done this? Talk about, hey, this was our goal. Where are we on this right now? Right? So more on the focus on the goal and less focus on how part of it, and giving the autonomy and empowerment to the programs, teams, and portfolios to work on the how part of it. You start also becoming a lot more smarter on asking the right questions around it. And it's a long journey, and it could be ups and downs. Like I have shown in the arrow, it looks green, but yes, there are lots of up and downs in the whole journey, but it's all about evolving and growing, right? Journey never stops. I think Sita or somebody asked this question, should we change the metric? I will not say change the metric very often, but I will say, yes, have a set of metrics that you really, really want, and give autonomy and empowerment to the teams. What other metrics they want to choose based on their goals at their team or program or portfolio levels, let them choose. And have a common vision at the overall enterprise portfolio program levels, and ask people to reach there over a period of time, and help them to reach there with with the journey they are taking, not the route you want to take for them. in the route they are taking, help them to get that right. I mean, I think Google Map is a good example. The minute you change your route, the Google Map will not say, hey, you are wrong, go back. It will actually immediately change its route itself to help you to recenter your overall map, right? So that is what actually someone like me, who is a change agent, will do is I will align with how people want to go and then tell them the pros and cons of that road, and then help them to make a right a route map or a road map to get to the goal that we are talking about, and then continuously inspect, adapt, evolve, and grow. So this is what the three simple things that has helped me personally as a coach and a change agent. And I'm definitely looking at some of the inputs from you guys. I know a lot of you are here who have already done this and been there in this world for some time now. What has helped you? So this is what I personally wanted to talk to you about today. I think we are bang on time. Maybe I took a 5 minutes extra. So what I wanted to speak to you was more about what happens behind the scenes, right? Like they say BTS. What is behind the scenes in the metrics world, rather than giving a laundry list of metrics and saying, hey, how to calculate this and where do you get this metric from? Because those answers are straightforward. So I wanted to share mostly on the challenges that I have been through. So would love to hear your thoughts. Would love to have some more time for some questions if you have. I know I'm past the time, so if I know some of you may have other meetings to join, but happy to stay back for a few more minutes and answer any other questions we have.
There are a couple of questions which are waiting for you, Padma.
Yeah, sure.
Sure.
You want to read that out? Or?
Yeah, I'll do that. I'll read that out. Gopal Amlekar has this question. He has given a little bit scenario also behind it. One key requirement to bring in metrics at any level in organization should be leadership drive and interest in assessing the performance and progress objectively. He's asking, how should we handle the scenario if top leaders aren't interested in any metrics?
Maybe again, I'll go back to asking a question: what matters to them? Maybe the metrics that they are looking at or they are aware of is not helping them to achieve what they want, so they may not be interested in that. So I will go back and ask, hey, what do you want to achieve in the next 6 months, 8, 9 months, 12 months, maybe 3, 6, 9, 12, and maybe put something that actually generates interest in them. Most of the times, why leadership actually either is yawning in a metrics presentation or looking into their mobile or looking into their laptop and doing something else in a metrics presentation, I have observed, is because what we are presenting is not of any interest to them. It doesn't matter to them, unfortunately. And we haven't asked the right questions to find out and put things up what actually interests them. So that is the hardest part. A lot of time goes into that part of interviewing the leaders to find out what they want. Once you have that answers, putting up a metrics dashboard is actually a very easy work at the end of the day. I mean, it's much faster.
Thanks, Padma. Another question by Bodhisattva. In a transformation program, when an organization is new to agile ways of working, how soon metrics can be introduced?
What type of organization you said, Priyank?
When the organization is new to agile ways of working.
I will say start where you are. See, you are having some metrics anyway, right? Maybe if you're in a project management world, not in a so agile world, like a planned date and an actual date of completion, for example, or number of defects. Continue to do that, but just align it with your sprint or a new agile way of calendar. If you're using Scrum and if you're having a 2-week sprint, continue to have that metric in the condensed way of for the story, plan date, actual date, and for the defects within the sprint, feature, plan date, actual date within the quarter. Continue and evolve. Like I said, don't stop evolving, but don't stop what you are doing also, because if you stop, you have not started anything, you have stopped also what you are doing. Actually, it creates a chaos. Slowly convert these metrics to suit the newer way of doing things. Instead of stopping them, I will say convert these metrics into like how you rebadge people, right? People were also doing work in a different way. And then you help them, and coach them to move into a new way of working. Same way, massage your metrics also in a way that they can be reused in the new world in to suit in the new way. Maybe look at uh, planned date or the average cycle time for your story. Instead of that, you still have the same planned date end date kind of a concept, but you're not losing what you already were collecting, which is not confusing. You have a continuity, and you're slowly massaging your metrics to convert them to the new world.
Those are all the additional questions that were there, Padma.
Okay.
I think you've provided answers to most of the questions that came in during the conversation also. So it was a very good webinar with a lot of content and a lot of insights. So I would like to thank you on behalf of Arita and also on behalf of all the participants. It was a great learning experience for all of us.